in 2024. Oops. Despite the pandemic obstacles and based on an overwhelmingly positive response from our membership, the Education Committee has put together this series of virtual training courses. It took a lot of work on behalf of the Planning Committee, in addition to doing their own work in the courts. And I'd like to thank Eileen Garrity, Khadijah White-Thomas, Jan Zari, Joanne Remy, Shannon Morris, Kevin Dempsey, Carolyn Baker, and Joe Markley. They've put together some great offerings and great all-star instructors who I'd also like to thank: Carla Calloway, Jim De La Tour, Amy Bennett, Albert Sushi, and Padraig Can. For those of you who are new to our organization or have not been very involved, I'd like to tell you a bit about the NCBC. The National Conference of Bankruptcy Clerks has been serving the needs of bankruptcy court clerks and deputy clerks nationwide for the past 41 years. Our mission is leadership, education, advocacy, and solutions. The NCBC acts as an advocate between its members and the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts. Through our annual conferences, the NCBC promotes training to enrich the professionalism and skills of our members and provide opportunities for clerks and deputy clerks to network, discuss court operations, and exchange ideas. In addition to conferences, the NCBC provides other benefits to our members, such as the LEAD Academy, which is a 4-month program for non-supervisory NCBC members to help them gain essential leadership skills to take on greater responsibilities in their current positions in the court. A scholarship tuition assistance program to assist members with continuing education, a mentor program designed to connect new and existing members of NCBC to enhance participants' professional and personal development while increasing their overall knowledge and understanding of the judicial system and court operations through a one-to-one relationship. Financial and retirement seminars, and additional insurance benefits, including supplemental disability, critical illness insurance, accidents insurance, and life insurance. Every year, the NCBC honors individuals in the bankruptcy community with awards for outstanding achievement, public service, special service awards, distinguished service, and administrative excellence awards. And as a token of our appreciation of all our members, gifts are in the process of being mailed to our local representatives within the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout. If you haven't already, I encourage you to get involved with the administration of NCBC. Check out the board positions, local and circuit representative positions, and the many committees that welcome your participation, including the education, outreach, award scholarship, mentorship, membership, the website committee, the newsletter impact editorial committee, and the benefits committee. Lastly, we are all very much looking forward to being back in person again at next year's annual education conference in Las Vegas. So please mark your calendars for June 6th through 9th, 2022. We hope to see you there for a big reunion. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy these virtual sessions. Take care, stay safe, and have a great summer. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Una. We hope that we are all in person again too in June. And it'll be quite the reunion that we all would be really looking forward to. So we really appreciate your support and your comments today. As Una was saying, my name is Carolyn Baker, and she just mentioned that I was a part of the planning committee for this year's virtual conference. Una has gotten us off to a great start here today, so we're excited to get going. I do want to tell you that Education Committee does remain committed to providing members with practical and resourceful learning experiences. And we've been fortunate in enlisting some excellent facilitators for you guys for our training sessions. We're very excited that we're able to connect and collaborate with you all today. Before we do get started, however, I'm going to turn it over to Jan, who's going to review some housekeeping items before introducing today's facilitator. Jan?
All righty. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone from the West Coast. It's a beautiful summer day here in Southern California, about 86 degrees and sunny out here. My name is Jan Zari. I'm the Impact Newsletter Editor for the NCBC and part of the planning committee for this year's summer virtual sessions. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a couple of really quick housekeeping items before we get started. Please remember to keep yourselves on mute. I think that most of you have already done that, which is great. You may keep your videos turned off. Our presenter today will be asking for questions throughout her presentation. So if you want to unmute yourselves, you can turn off your video at the time if you have a question when she asks. And also you may use the chat box to type your questions there. And if you don't feel comfortable sending your questions to the whole group, you may send it directly to me or to Carolyn, and we will share your question with our presenter. And then if you have any technical issues during the presentation, please contact your local IT staff or send an email to education@ncbcweb.com for assistance. Again, that's education@ncbcweb.com. And then lastly, the presentation for today is being recorded, so you will be able to access any of the material covered today at a later time. Okay. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our presenter for today, Ms. Carla Calloway from the Federal Occupational Health Employee Assistance and Work-Life Programs here in Los Angeles, California. Carla, if you're ready, please go ahead and take it away.
Certainly, certainly. Thank you so much, Jan. I appreciate that. And I appreciate being invited here this afternoon to talk about a timely subject of transitions in the workplace. So with that, let me transition myself and share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint here. Let's see. Great. All right. Okay. Well, I hope everyone can see the screen, see the slides, transition in the workplace. Great topic we're going to be discussing this afternoon. I am Carla Calloway. I am an EAP, consultant / counselor. I am also a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I tell you, my role has been to support all of us in this transition that we've seemingly been through over a year now. And now we're heading into even more transitions as we begin to go back into the office. So as Jan mentioned, if you have any questions throughout my presentation, I have no problem with you jumping in if you would like. If you have a question, I love epiphanies, comments, aha moments. Those are wonderful for me because my goal is to make sure that you get as much out of this presentation today as possible. This is for you. So I don't mind it. Type it in the chat, unmute yourselves, whatever you want to do. And periodically, I will be stopping and asking for any questions or thoughts as well. All right, so here we go. All right, so my goal is to define change and transition. And even though we use these terms interchangeably, sometimes as if they are the same, they are a little different. So I'm going to talk about that, identify some stages of transition, and discuss the approaches for managing the transition process. So before I get into that, let me go to here. Take a look at this quote by William Bridges. It isn't the changes that do you in, it's the transitions. And William Bridges, I also sent a resource handout to be distributed to you as well. And this resource is on that handout. William Bridges is a person who has dedicated much of his work on studying change and transition. So much of what we're going to talk about today is from the books that we listed on your resource handout as well. So let me ask you this, and I invite you to either unmute yourselves as I ask this question and answer, or type it in the chat. Either is fine. what current changes are you going through at work? And I have, a couple in mind, I think I already mentioned, but what changes can you think of that you are currently going through at work? I really want to make this personal for you. So if you could either, tell me those changes or type it in the chat, that would be great. Okay. Okay. So returning to work full time. Yeah, losing telework flexibility, retirements, taking on more different roles. Let's see. Personnel changes, going back into the office part-time. Yes, I have to tell you my experience last week. I'll talk about that, of going back into the office, even though we are still working from home. But, I decided, look, it's time for me to get back in there. I don't even know if I left an egg salad sandwich on the desk a year ago, because it was so sudden the change when they told us to stay home. So I'll talk about that, my own feelings about that. So thank you so much for these wonderful answers. And I think losing family time, reorganization, yeah. And someone just said all of those. You're right. All of those. Going from Zoom and phone back into the courtroom. Yes. So many changes. So this is the next question then. Tell me, what feelings does this bring up for you? What kind of feelings are you having with these changes? I know for me, when I went back into the office last week, it was like a twilight zone, honestly. It was so surreal. Yeah, there was that uncertainty, resentment. Oh, I like that one. That's true. Anxiety, sadness. Absolutely. And these are all normal. Like I said, my experience, it was surreal. I was anxious about going, just getting in the car, driving there, right? Getting back in traffic. And it was just like, okay, this feels familiar, but it's not. Yes, stress from dealing with commuting in traffic. Someone said resentment is a good one. Yeah, resentment, that is rough. It's like that resentment feeling. It's like, if you don't know something, then it's okay. But then when you learn there's a different way to do something, yeah, having to change back, yeah, they might bring up some resentment and the unknown, the anxiety. Absolutely. Thank you all so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Okay. So we've talked about that. We've talked about your feelings. So there are a variety of reactions, and you all describe them very much so. And I really appreciate it. I mean, we have that, it's that loss of security. There has been some working from home, for instance. At first, remember, it was just all of a sudden. So we lost that security back then over a year ago of, okay, how do I work from home? That loss of competence. How do I work from home? I've never done this before, but then now we got comfortable. So now it's maybe we're transitioning, starting to go back, or hearing that pretty soon we'll be going back. So it's that saying goodbye. I was looking, my two dogs have been my coworkers, right? For the last over a year. So I was talking to my dogs and I said, wow, I don't know what we're going to do without each other when I have to go back into the office. Just feeling that loss of that relationship. We lost the relationships when we had to transition to home. We were used to being around coworkers and then got used to it. Now, like I said, maybe with your dogs, I don't know if your kids were there with you, your spouse, significant other, those relationships. So it's a lot of loss, feelings of loss, at least, loss of control. And with all of that, these feelings come confusion, and it is normal. It is very, very normal. So if you're feeling all of these things, let me normalize that for you. I'm pretty sure most of all of us, if I could have everyone raise their hand of who may be feeling a bit confused, a little lost, almost all of us would raise our hands. Okay, go ahead. I have a question I see. Let's see, we have, I think Eileen, Woody. So who wants to go first? You want to unmute yourself, or is there, let me see, is there something in the chat? Oh, you're just, oh, you know what? Silly me. Oh, you're raising your hand to co-sign. Exactly. Those feelings. Okay, gotcha. Sorry about that. All right. So I promised you that I was going to define the difference between change and transition. And again, generally, we tend to use these terms interchangeably. You know, we're making a transition or making a change, but there's some difference. And William Bridges described it and defined change as is situational, you know, such as a new job, a new team, a new supervisor. We have all been through some type of change. All of us have been through change. It is inevitable. Always, there's always some type of change. Now, transition is, okay, so change is external, it's situational, it's that thing, it's that noun. It's external, but transition is that internal psychological process that we go through when we have learned about the change. So that's how we're going to define transition and change today. So change is external, transition is internal. It's that process that we feel, those feelings that we were discussing just earlier. That's that transition part. And these are the phases of the transition. So I'm going to go through these really good for you. So you kind of can maybe identify where you are and get some strategies on how to deal with it. So William Bridges defines and describes the first phase of transition as that ending. He says you can't do something new until you have let go of what you're currently doing. So I'm going to continue on with transitioning from telework back to the office for some of you who may be doing that. Some of you may be maybe continuing to work from home. Some of you may be doing a hybrid, who knows? But we are beginning to hear the rumblings of, and I heard the previous speaker talk about, you know, getting back into the office. So there are rumblings for all of us, right? So as we face the ending possibly of, say, teleworking or whatever your change is, some mentioned the reorganization, whatever your change is, you definitely want to acknowledge it and treat it with respect. I think to make this transition without reflecting on the learning opportunities, what we learn. I personally, I did not, of course, like any of us, like the pandemic, but I have to say I was impressed by how innovative we had to become in navigating what happened with the pandemic and adapting to these Zoom meetings and things like that. So, you know what, pat yourselves on the back about that. You did that. You really did that. And we learned so many new terms and things like that. So treat that with respect. Acknowledge that loss, that ending. Feel that whatever you're feeling, you know, like I said, when I went back into the office last week, I honestly, I got to my office, I got to my desk, and luckily I did not leave out an egg salad sandwich. Thank goodness. Wow, that would have been worse. But I got to my desk and I just kind of, before I started the task for the day, I just kind of sat there and just felt it like, wow, this is surreal and it's okay, you know. So sorting out the loss. And if you need information to deal with the change as you're dealing with the ending of something, it's okay. Ask for clarification, ask questions, identify any continuities. For instance, can it be hybrid? Can you still do some work from home and then go into the office some days? See if there's some overlap or that you can identify. Definitely figure out the facts. And this is very important because when a change is announced, whatever the change is, somehow rumors just start to fly. Because people start making assumptions about the change, what it's going to look like, that transition. But make sure you have the facts. And that's where asking questions of your supervisor, getting that clarification can be very helpful, because sometimes we will hear a rumor and we would treat it as fact. And we don't even know if it's true or not. So make sure you figure out the facts so you do not have unnecessary anxiety. I mean, we have enough anxiety as it is. We do not need unnecessary anxiety. And definitely distinguish between the current losses, the old wounds, because too, in transition, in this ending, there's this kind of mourning process that you're trying to accept, this mourning process. And you may be triggered from not really processing like a previous change that was similar. Now, for myself, I've never had to go through necessarily working in an office every day, then working from home every day, and now facing going back into the office. But if there's another change, maybe there was a reorganization in the past, or a new job or a new supervisor, especially with new supervisors, that's really hard, that ending, because particularly if you like the supervisor, now you're wondering about the new supervisor. How's that person going to be? So you want to distinguish, and if that's bringing up any triggers for you that you felt back if that happened to you before. You want to distinguish that as well. And this is where EAP counselors can be very helpful to you. So before I move on to talk about the next phase of transition, the neutral zone, are there any questions or comments, anything I can clarify? Okay. All right. So then there's this neutral zone, and William Bridges says it's that you enter into a state of affairs in which neither the old ways nor the new ways work satisfactorily. So I view the neutral zone, this is where you are probably the most anxious. So for instance, the change is announced and you start in a transition, start the phase of transition. You're dealing with the endings and things like that. But now it's like right now we're in between in the neutral zone, a lot of us, where they've announced that we will be returning back to the office, but we haven't started back in the office. So it's kind of this gray area. This is usually in the neutral zone where the most anxiety occurs, the most confusion, feelings of chaos, maybe even emptiness happens. That need to reestablish control, because you know that ending is coming, but you're uncertain about what the new will look like. So you're kind of in between these two worlds, basically. So that's what the neutral zone is. And like I said, it is the most anxiety-ridden phase of transition. So this is where it is so important to use those stress management techniques that you use. So I want to ask another question. Tell me what ways that you manage your stress levels. What do you do when you're feeling stressed? What are your coping skills? You can type it in the chat or feel free to unmute yourselves. Exercise. Exercise, great. Go for a walk. Meditation, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, yoga, gardening, listening to music, talking to friends, breathing. Yes. Oh, and I love that. Exercise and eat my feelings. Yes, like wonderful emotional eating. Love that. Chocolate. Oh, yeah. Seeing friends and family. Love it. creative art outlet and funny movies. Wonderful. These are excellent examples of dealing with stress and how you deal with stress. So here in this neutral zone, which maybe much of us, I admit this is where I am now, in that kind of middle area. Be sure that you, whatever techniques, connecting with coworkers, if you have a coworker that you trust and you want to vent to, maybe connecting with them to just say, oh, how do you feel about this? What do you think? Whatever it is. So to just let it out, connect with your coworkers. And this is where you want to experiment with new ideas. I imagine as you're preparing for the uncertain, whatever the change is, you've learned a lot about yourself, what your likes and dislikes are probably. So experiment with the new things that you've learned about yourself, your new ideas. Now's the time to do that in this neutral zone. Are there any questions or comments, anything I can clarify before I move on to the third and last phase of transition? Okay. All right. So this is interesting that the third phase and the last phase that William Bridges describes in the phase of transition is called beginnings, right? So we started with endings and we're ending with beginnings. So William Bridges describes the beginnings phase as transition is the natural process of disorientation and reorientation that marks the turning points in the path of growth. Transitions are key times in the natural process of self-renewal. New beginnings. Like I said, you're coming out of the neutral zone. Now you might want to experiment with some new ideas, new ways of doing things that you've learned about yourself, maybe that you've learned about, say, technology, or how to get to work, how to lessen the effect of traffic, things like that. So turn those ideas into actions. Turn them into actions as you're trying things, and begin to take just some, do some incremental steps toward any long-term goals. So now it's kind of it's like you're making lemonade out of the lemons, trying to come out of that neutral zone and establish more of a control and certainty about this change that you're dealing with. So it's a good time to, whatever those long-term goals, maybe it's a job search, maybe you can't take not one more reorganization anymore. But whatever it is, begin those steps towards those long-term goals and take those small actions, that just leads to accomplishments. Break it down into small tasks, and it also increases confidence as well. So, and another thing we've talked about before I move on to skill building, someone earlier did mention the reality of, particularly as we are federal government employees, and oftentimes we face reorganization or whatever change there is. So on a practical level, whatever the change is, if say it's a reorganization, it might be a good idea to use a transition monitoring team, to encourage people, those people who are positive, who have been through change, maybe been with the agency organization for a long time, who are flexible, who might be on this team. So that helps with explaining. Now, none of us were around back when the last pandemic hit. And I imagine back then, I think it was the 19th century, they had to, it was the early 20th century, but they had to stay at home. So we weren't around then, right? So we can't really add that knowledge as to what do we do. So we had to kind of learn it a lot from scientists and things like that. But there are those and people who know about certain changes within the agency and things like that, that have some good history that can help to make it a more positive experience. Maybe not teleworking back into the office per se, but reorganization or changing the way you go back into the courtroom or something like that. So it might be a good idea to have a transition monitoring team as well to check on people. And I also suggest that these people should have these traits that I've listed here. They're proactive, focused, flexible, organized, and positive. These are the type of mentors that you want to establish if you're struggling with the transition. Mentors that you can go to who have kind of these resilient traits. They're focused, they've been through it. Have an attitude of flexibility. Understand that change is a given. It's gonna happen. How we deal with it is really our attitude, is what matters. Do they have a positive attitude about it? So in your skill building, if you're struggling, look for people around you, your coworkers or people around you that can give you these type of traits to help you in your struggle. Are there any questions or comments before I move on? Okay. Oops. Make sure that hold on. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay. So also another way to deal with transitions and manage them too, not only I've suggested you identify someone, maybe a mentor to help you through it, but you want to reflect on your own reactions to change, because some of us do have this, reaction like, I hate change. I've heard that so much. I just hate change. I hate when things change. And that's okay. As long as you have your own awareness, your own reaction, how you deal with change. Do you understand the transition paradigm? And the transition paradigm says nothing stays the same, unfortunately. Nothing stays the same as much as we would want them to. I still, okay, just until recently, I got rid of my my VHS player because I still had some tapes that I wanted, but it was obsolete. So I had to get rid of it. It was taking up space, right? I didn't want that to change. Now, I had to buy a DVD player, and now we're streaming, and that costs a bunch. You're paying all kind of streaming costs, right? But yeah, I have to be mindful about my attitudes about that. Do we look at a change as just hate it? Or do we just kind of go with the flow? Understand, such is life, que sera, sera. It is what it is, whatever that mantra or affirmation that you want to use. You got to recognize there's a need for change. I look at the pandemic, even though it's horrible and has been, but honestly, this mask wearing thing, I'm going to use it sometimes. Now, I'm not one that's like, oh, I love to wear my mask, but it has helped to keep down the rate of colds and flus that we've been getting. And so now I'm noticing that people are getting colds and flus again, now that we're getting rid of the mask. So there's maybe some need, some change that is a little good that we could use and benefit from as well. Definitely confront your own personal views. Maybe a mentor can help you with that, positive person, and help you with embracing change rather than resist it. And there's a great book I don't know if you guys have heard of it or read of it. I'm sure you have. It's an old book, but it's a great read called Who Moved My Cheese? Little short book, easy to read, seems kind of weird, but it is such a great book about change and how the different characters of the book dealt with change and what that meant for them. So I invite you. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? And just practice change in small steps. Like for me, even though we are not back in the office yet, we have not been called back to the office yet, but I chose to voluntarily just go in one day last week to just kind of get my feet wet about it. To just, okay, how's this gonna go? Make sure I can still get in the building with my badge, you know. So I that was me practicing that change in small steps. So I invite you to do the same. It's a great way to manage transition. So as I begin to wrap up in just a few minutes, are there any questions or comments or anything I can clarify in the information that I've given you so far? Okay. All right. So let me put this all together. I've given you a lot of information about change, about transition, but definitely you want to separate the external change from the internal process of transition. So let me expound on that a little bit. A change is announced, reorganization. So oftentimes we will focus on, here we go again, that reorganization, and focus on maybe whatever our feelings are about it. That thing, that noun, that change, that becomes the enemy. I think as a licensed marriage and family therapist, where I can be more relatable is, say, for instance, you were married and have gone through a divorce. So oftentimes people will focus on the change, you know, the marriage as the enemy or the bad thing, changes from married to unmarried. But actually what you have to focus on is that internal psychological process of the transition, the behaviors, the symptoms, the feelings that you felt within the change. You really want to do that. And don't just focus on the change, because we really, and then another thing about that, most change, especially at work that we deal with, it's out of our control, right? So for instance, you find out that they're going to be changing, you guys are going to be relocating offices or something. Most of us in our roles don't have control over where we're going to move, what building, things like that. So focusing on that change of the move, of the location move, is fruitless. It's in your uncontrollable box. Don't do it. But what you do want to focus on is what's going on internally. How are you dealing with the transition, this process of the transition? That's what you want to focus on, because that's where you will find your most sense of control. Another thing, managing your transition and putting it all together, you want to accept your reactions as you move through. So this is the difference between endurance versus recovery. Many times we hear some change, deal with something, and we just endure it. It's like, whatever, we put our head down, I'm just gonna do it, whatever. And we don't allow ourselves to feel it. Like I think earlier, Jan said the overeating, you know, that's okay, because at least in the overeating, the emotional eating, you're allowing yourself to feel it, whatever that feeling is about the change, the transition. You know, you might want to put in place, you know, extra exercise, not to put on weight, but at least you're feeling it. So accept your reactions, whatever it is, lean into those emotions. Is it anger? Is it denial? Is it sadness? What is it? Is it happiness? Feel it. Be okay in all the different phases, the endings, the neutral zones, and the beginnings. accept that reaction. And build your resiliency. Because obviously we are resilient. Every one of us in this meeting right now, we are resilient. We definitely are. So build on that. Reflect on how you manage stress in the past. Build on those skills. Know your own self-awareness. What were your triggers? What were your triggers? Reflect on when we had maybe make this major change before. And what did you do through the transition? Do you know yourself? So it's so important to do all of these different things as you're managing right now in whatever change that you are going through, to bolster these stress management and resilience skill building and self-awareness skills. All right. So I wanted to do something real quick because I think we have a few minutes to do. I just wanted to do a quick stress management tool that many may see as corny, but it is so helpful. It is so helpful. And it's the deep breathing. It is so helpful to stop and deep breathe, even when you are a change is first announced and you feel those emotions kicking in like, what? Why? No, I'm comfortable. I don't want to do it, right? You're all frazzled, or throughout the day, you're frazzled. Something happens, the tasks are overwhelming. If you're working from home, balancing what's going on at home, your home life and your work life. And especially for those of you who were working from home and your children were home too, like, wow, I'm especially applaud you. But can we just take a minute right now to just do a little deep breathing? And all you have to do is just close your eyes. Breathe in is real deep for 4 seconds and breathe out 5 seconds. And you just do that maybe about 3 or 4 cycles. But you'll find that just doing this simple exercise when you're emotionally triggered, thinking about change, thinking about transition, thinking about the future, the uncertainty, it helps your brain to de-escalate those emotions so that you can come back. And I even say, your deep breathing, you're all about, your anxiety is gone, because remember, anxiety is all about the future. It's about the what ifs and shouldas and the couldas and the wouldas and all that you absolutely have no control over. So as you're breathing in and out, think about your here and now, what's going on now that's wonderful right now. Maybe you're still at home, right now you have your wonderful drink or you had a great lunch, whatever, so that you can de-escalate and come back to your present moment. So that's a good way to manage stress. I just wanted to, we can't go through everything, there's so much, but just wanted to do leave you with some type of stress management technique. Right. So before I totally wrap up, are there any questions or comments, anything that I can clarify for you? Okay. All right. So just as a reminder that we at Employee Assistance and Work Life Programs, we're here for you. We're here for you 24/7. Let's see what we have in the chat. Oh yeah, no problem. We're here for you. I hope you have this 800 number in your phone or easily accessible. I want to remind you that during this time of transition, whatever change you're going through, you are able to call our 800 number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and ask for counseling, some individual counseling sessions. And you can get up to about 6 sessions per year, per issue. So invite you, we're here to help you. If you're struggling with the transition, again, connect with each other. Also, great website if you haven't looked at your website, foh4u.com. Very helpful. A lot of stress management tools and webinars on change and change management as well. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Are the sessions free? The sessions are absolutely free. Absolutely free. It's a free agency benefit. Not only free, but let me stress, confidential. Because I know because it's free, people tend to be like, oh no, they must share something with agencies, with my boss or something. But no, we don't. It's and thank you for the compliment. Great information. Love the EAP. Wonderful. Yeah, great. Well, I really appreciate it, and I'm loving the comments. I appreciate you with the thank yous. I love it, and I thank you. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I believe I get to do it again. We're going to discuss balancing work and personal life, so that ought to be fun too. That's kind of a hands-on exercise. Yes, I heartily recommend the EAP for court training sessions. Absolutely. Yes, yes. All right. Anything else before we leave? Anything, Jan, that you want to say before I check out for this session?
Nope, if nobody has any other questions, we should be good to go until the top of the hour. And we'll see you then for balancing work and personal life. Thank you again, Carla. This was a really wonderful session. Thank you everybody for attending, for joining us today. And we'll see you again soon.
All right, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.